Okay, so this is the Unit 1 review sheet video. So what I'm going to do with these videos is go through the review sheet. I'm going to talk through the answers, but also display the answer key on the screen. So as you go through the video, you can listen, but you can also pause and make sure you're getting down all the answers you need on your review sheet. The program I use limits me to 5-minute videos. So there's going to be a couple of these that will take us through the entirety of the Unit 1 review sheet. So here we go. Talking about the geographical features of the United States, the Appalachian Mountains run along closer to the East Coast, and these mountains served as a barrier to westward expansion for the early colonists. The Rocky Mountains, which are further west, also served as a barrier to expansion to the West Coast. The Sierra Nevada Mountains in California are a place where gold was discovered. Additionally, those mountains help cause weather that allows for some very fertile soil in parts of California where a lot of crops are grown. The Great Plains are also a very, very fertile land, good for farming. It's a large flat area in the middle of our country. Boston Harbor was an early trade port, also was a center of activity during the American Revolution. The Port of New York is also a huge, huge place for trade. It also becomes very important for immigration and also our biggest city. New Orleans is at the mouth of the Mississippi River on the Gulf of Mexico. And that became a very important trade network because it ran all the way through the country, down to the Gulf, and out to the rest of the world. The Hudson River connects New York State to upstate New York and Albany. Eventually, the Erie Canal is built that connects the Hudson to the Great Lakes and the rest of the country, which can now be connected to New York City. The Ohio River connects the Mid-Atlantic area to the Mississippi River, subsequently to the rest of the world through the Gulf of Mexico. The Mississippi River, which we already talked about a little bit, was an important network for trade through most of the middle of the country down to the Gulf. The Mississippi is also our largest river by volume. The Missouri River was used for exploration of the Pacific coast. And finally, the Atlantic Ocean is a kind of natural barrier that has existed throughout our history that has protected us from invasion from other countries. Question 2. Most colonial settlements were built on harbors or rivers that were close to the coast. Why is this the case? So building settlements near water was good for trade, was good for transportation, access to Britain, which was the mother country of our colonies, access to fishing, irrigation, and if you're close to a river or lake, also access to drinking water. Question 3, describe indentured servitude. So essentially a person had their passage from Europe to the New World paid for, but they were legally bound then to work for whoever paid for their passage for a period of time, usually 5 or 7 years, but it allowed people who otherwise couldn't afford it to come to America from Europe. What geographic facts made it easier for slavery to grow in the southern counties, but harder for the northern counties? This is question 4. So in the South, there was a longer growing season, there was a warm and wet climate, and there was a lot of fertile soil. That made it good for plantation agriculture. For plantation agriculture to work, you need a lot of labor, and it became economically feasible then for them to have slave labor in the South, not so much in the North. Question 5, after slave rebellions, like the Stono Rebellion, how were slaves treated after that? Typically after a rebellion, slaves were treated more harshly through physical punishment or people being sold to different plantations to kind of clamp down on rebellions after they had tried to rebel previously. Number 6, describe the major differences between the northern and New England counties and the southern counties. So the northern counties were based largely on shipping and manufacturing. There was some farming, but not the large-scale farming that existed in the South. People in the northern counties were much more literate, more educated. They were very, very religious, and it was mostly families who came to settle for the long term. And again, a lot of these northern counties, their economies were based on trade and shipping. The southern counties were largely agricultural based, especially large-scale cash crop plantation agricultural. Many people who came to the southern counties were single men who were looking to make quick money and not settle permanently. And eventually, a lot of these southern counties, especially where there was large-scale plantation agriculture, relied on slave labor. We're going to stop here and continue with question 7 in the next video.